I'm going to open a new canvas, and you could do like, you know, just the square or 3000 by 3000 or whatever dimensions that you want. I'm just making sure that I'm up there around 2500 to 3000 so that it's large enough for what I want to do. So the first thing, you could either start with a background or like a scroll or a ribbon or something, or you can start with the actual word. I like to start with the word because I kind of don't really know, you know, it's kind of like a sketch ahead of time. So what I'm going to do is actually go to, I've rearranged mine so yours is going to look different than mine, but I'm going to go to sketching, just to the pencil, and then I usually go in like a bright blue or red when I sketch so that it can differentiate what I'm doing. So you could, your phrase, I'm going to do one or two words. You could say like sail or like try art. I'm making this kind of retro. So I'm going to see how I can make this look a little more vintage. So I'm going to say, I think I will do a banner. We're going to see. Okay, so I'm just for now going to just put the word art in here before I even think about form or anything. And if you like to use guides, you can turn on, let me show you. You can go to your wrench icon and then go to canvas, go to drawing guide, and then you have this grid. You can also go into edit drawing guide, change the size. So that might help you in determining, like, you know, once this is open, this is not on a layer, so you can turn that off and it'll be gone, but it will help, you know, create form so that you can be a little bit more intentional with your letters. Like I can go to these corners or whatever. Another great resource though is I'll link them, but the grid builder, which has all these grids, and then the letter builder. So these are awesome resources when it comes to planning out your lettering composition. So they are essentially stamps that look like this. You can resize them and then do your lettering like inside of there, and makes things so easy. So I'll link those below, but we're not going to use them in this tutorial because I just want to focus on creating this fun vintage art without working with what you have. I am going to though introduce you to some halftone brushes that I recently fell in love with, so that'll be fun. All right, I'm going to turn this grid off. I find it to be a little distracting. Some people find it to be way helpful, so it just kind of depends. Another thing I noticed is that I kind of stretched this, so I'm just going to edit it and go to freeform. Whoops, not. When you go to edit something, if you don't know, you just select, to resize, you select the arrow and then make sure if it's uniform, it's going to, no matter where you adjust it, stay in the same dimensions. If I say freeform, then I can smush it more, and then that makes it less wide. For this case, I'm going to do that just because I want the letters to be a little bit more bubbly. So now I'm going to go to red. I'm going to create a new layer on top of that so that I can work in separate layers, but kind of still get the results that I'm looking for. And basically, I'm not doing this perfectly centered because I'm going to run out of room. So I'm just making sure that the widths overall are the same, and then building up like a block letter. And then I'm going to do that with the rest of these as well. So what I can do is go into this R, the base, and then move it over. I probably actually move both of these over so that it's more centered. Okay, go back to my red layer. Too far. Let's just go here and see what happens. And then probably just make this shorter. There we go. Make sure that lines up. I have another tutorial on actually like planning these letters out with the grid builder, so I do recommend watching that. I'll link that video in the description so you can see what I'm talking about. And if I didn't mention it, I don't think I mentioned it, but I'm using the 6B, which is just like under sketching under Procreate's main brushes. And that's just the pencil that I use typically for most of this stuff. Okay, so I can turn off that bottom layer and then adjust this as I might want to. Art. And then I might even smush this more. I don't know really. So it's essentially just kind of building up your base of your letters, and then I can go back in and say like, see if I can slant this so it looks a little more vintagey. So you know when you see, let's see, I guess it would be a little bit more blunt. Try art. You know how it's like those ads? Try this. I'm going to say try art. Okay, so it doesn't look very vintagey, but it's going to when we add our halftones. So what I'm going to do now is actually put like the base on. If you're happy with your initial sketch, you can go in and do that. So I'm going to go to a new layer, and now I'm going to actually apply my illustration with the brushes that I want to, and I'm going to use these bottom colors here just because they are fun and kind of retro-y, or like, you know, 80s. Okay, so the brush that I'm going to use, this is a brush that I've linked below. If you want to follow along with these halftone brushes, then I would grab those now. They are awesome. I don't even need to convince you of it. I just trust me if you know how I am all about getting the right brushes. So they're by Shoutbound. They're called Dirty Halftone Brush Set. It's got all of these brushes. So it's got these sprayers for texture, and they're all labeled at the top so you can see the separation. Texturizers, shaders, and then extras. And I'm just going to use the old inker, and it looks just like this, but it's got some texture to it. So I'm going to use that, and if it helps to turn down your guide layer, just turn down the opacity, you can do that. And now I'm just going to, outline this. And the reason I'm outlining it with this gritty type of brush is because I want to have that texture on the outside. I just think it's fun. Totally unnecessary for this type of like pop art, but I mean, if you've watched any of my tutorials, then you know I'm a like texture fanatic. Like I can't get enough of it. So personal choice, might not be totally on like the track of what this vibe or theme goes for, but that's where we have the option to make art what we want and make our own creative choices. So from there, I can fill that in. By doing a color drop. Make sure that your color threshold is not too high or it'll drop everywhere, but basically that looks okay to me. I might actually change it because it looks like it's, with the texture, it looks like it's a rounded tip, so it's a little bit, it's not as straight as I would like, so maybe I won't use that one. I don't know. This is what I do. I'm very indecisive. All right, that looks good enough for this anyway. Okay, and then if you ever want to clean some area up, like maybe it's too thick right here, you can go to your eraser, go to any tool or brush eraser that you want. Just drag a line and then hold, and it'll snap in place. You can do that with a regular brush too, so I could have done that when I was building these letters out, which probably would have served in my benefit more than having to do the cleanup, but such is life. I'll do that next. Okay, so basically drag and snap, and then you can see it's in that straight line. If you want it to be like super perfect, if you hold a finger down, it's gonna snap to these increments to make sure it's like perfectly straight. I don't care about that in this scenario. So I'm just going to outline this. I'm going to bring this up a little higher. And then okay. And I think that is probably a little bit, it's not, yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to be too finicky about my letters just because I want to show you guys how to do this. And your lettering's going to look different than mine anyway, so that's not totally the point right now, but I'm not going to be too picky. It takes me usually, if I was doing a piece like this, other than showing you, I will say it would take me longer because I would really want to perfect these letters, but I'm not worried about it right now. But essentially I'm just making sure like the width and is the same throughout, but it's also like even enough. It's not perfect, but that's okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to go to my Monoline brush. I think there's one in the calligraphy section. Otherwise, you can grab this for free on my website, which is also linked. It's called Mono Pigeon. And there we go. I'm going to make that larger and then switch over to this color. I might change my colors in a little bit too, but for right now, this is what I'm going to use. Okay, T-R-Y. So I'm going to turn off my guide. Done with that. Now I could do like a scroll, or I could do, you know, a star or something like that. I think I'll do a star behind. So I'm going to go to my layer beneath. And you could use a guide for a star if you really wanted to, but I kind of like wonky stars. So I'm going to do and see how this is going to look with more of a wonky star. Okay, let's see. The first thing I'm going to do is change. I'm going to make this darker. And I want this to be more yellow. I'm doing this because I want to have an outline and I want to have an inside here on purpose. It's so that I can change those colors independently of one another, rather than like, you know, had I filled this layer and then I change that color, but it's going to change everything. So it's just a way to work indestructibly. So now I can do my banner. And the fun thing about this is that your lettering doesn't have to fit exactly in your banner. You can have it fall off a little bit, like try could fall off. So I'm gonna go in between my art and my star, create a new layer in there, and then go and create a banner. So if you're not familiar with banners, I have a class called 25 Banners Anyone Can Draw on Skillshare. I've linked it so that you can try that out. And if you're not a Skillshare member, the link will give it to you 2 weeks for free. I'll show you a banner right now, but you should totally check that out because banners are so fun to draw and they add so much to your final pieces. So I super love them. I don't know about color right now. I'm just going to pick one. But I definitely know that I will change it later. But for now, all that you need to do is I'll show you a wavy banner. So this is going to be like an S curve. So it's going to dip down and then dip back up and back down. So basically, if you turn it on its side, it's like an S. And then I'm going to mimic that and do the exact same thing on the bottom. So 2 things here. You could make it so that you copy it, like duplicate that layer and drag it down to make it like perfect, or you can draw it. And I recommend drawing it because I think that it looks really cool to have like, and it also gets you in the habit of like, maybe this would be skinnier, in which case like your lettering would get skinnier and it would look farther and farther away or something like that. So that's why I like to draw everything and go from there. But I can reposition this about here, maybe make it oops, not uniform. Maybe make it a little bit narrower. Okay, so once you have your 2 S's, and if it helps you to, once you get here, turn like one of these layers off, then you can do that. But you're gonna connect the 2 together, the 2 ends, okay? And then you are going to, in the dips, so like there's a dip right here, I'm going to draw a line like this and do the same thing on the other side, draw a line, and then I'm just gonna mimic this curve. So it's gonna come up like this and then out again, like that S curve, so down and up. And then you're going to see the distance between here. So if I hold my Apple Pencil up to it, it's, you know, to about here. So without changing the size or anything, you're going to see how long that is and then see how long it is up here. And that's where your next line is going to go. Basically what this is doing is making it so that this width on the main part of your banner is going to be the same width as the back part so that it doesn't look like a totally different banner. So see how there's this width here. It's a little bit smaller than that side. I'm just mimicking the top here with the bottom, just the same way I did the main one, but it's like peekabooing from the back. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so now I'm gonna do just a V to connect the two ends to create that banner. Do another V right here to create that banner. And lastly, I want to connect it. So what I'm going to do is see where this corner is, and it's just stopping. It needs to connect to this corner down here. So you can do just like a straight across line, or you can play with it and make it a little bit wavy, and that just makes the banner look a little bit more flowy and a little softer. But essentially that's it. There's your banner. You might want it to wrap around your shape in the back. So you could either, I'm going to unreference this real quick. You can either take it and stretch it a little further, or take your shape in the back. And I selected 2 layers by selecting one and then swiping to the right for the other one. And then making it so it will be, like it'll make sense to overlap it. So what I mean by that is if I go to the banner, I can erase part of this so that it looks like it's sandwiching behind the star. And the way that I want to do this is I will fill those layers real quick. I think I'll just do it directly on to make this less complicated for you guys, because I'm just going to keep trying to add layers and layers and layers, and you're going to be like, Peggy, this is like not fun anymore, and I don't want that. So, okay. So I'm going to erase part of it, but I'm going to do it non-destructively. You guys know I like working non-destructively. So what that means is I'm going to first decrease the opacity so I can see the line of the star. And then I'm going to create a mask. And it's going to be, I'm going to select it and say mask, not clipping mask, but mask. And when you're working in a mask, you're working in black and white. Black will take away anything on that layer, but not really, because it's just the mask. So if I turn that off, it's still there. So you're basically erasing without erasing, and you can undo it. Whereas if you just erase, you'd be SOL on that. So, all right. So basically I want the star to peekaboo right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be on my mask layer. Wait, what happened here? Oh, I turned it off. I'm going to make a new mask layer. Okay, so I'm on my mask layer, and then I can just draw right here, draw here, and then draw here. And it looks like I'm erasing, but again, I am just filling it with black. And the reason that you can see through it is because I have that opacity turned down, so just ignore that. Okay, and then this side, it would make sense to come out. So see, from like behind the banner, it would make sense to come right here. So that's something that you will just need to play with, but I promise you, just having this like integration with your lettering, you know, with the, or your illustration, it just like makes everything look a lot more like you are, it's like intertwined, and it's interactive, and it looks a lot more eye-catching to have that option. So see what I mean? I'm going to turn the opacity back up, and then look at that. It's so fun because it's like sandwiched behind there. It looks super cute. I can turn try back on, and it looks super cute. I can shift it a little bit to make it like exactly where I want it. Again, these are not good colors together. I just like to work where, like I'll probably use that same palette somehow, but I like to work where I can really differentiate each thing from each thing. Now, we are going to apply the same effect that we did in my previous video on like that dirty monoline lettering or gritty. that I, again, have linked below. But we're going to do the same thing. So if you're not familiar with it, I'm not going to like really do the rundown because I have it in that previous video and I don't want to waste anybody's time. But I will, that's what we're going to do. So first one is going to be art. And before anything, though, I want to outline it. So what I'm going to do is duplicate it and then go to the bottom layer, drag it. Actually, it'll help if you have it a different color. So it's on the bottom layer. You're not going to see it right away, but basically just fill it. Make sure your threshold's all the way up so that it fills completely. Now I can see it. It's much easier. So you can drag this out as far as you want. I'm going to drag it just to right here, I think. Yeah. And then I'm going to get really close and I'm going to connect the bottom corners where there's a gap. So like here's okay. Here's a little bit of a gap. Whoops. And then that's technically already connected, even though we wouldn't see it because of the way that it lays. I'm going to connect this one, and that's just filling in that drop shadow essentially. And then I know that I was just looking at my A, and I know that it naturally created this ledge. I don't know if I love that. We'll see. I might get rid of it. But okay. From here is when we can start applying our effects. And this part is my favorite. So the first thing that we can do is use that previous tutorial the same way but with halftones. And this part gets really, really fun. So there are so many halftone shaders, texturizers in this pack. Again, linked below if you want to grab it, but like look at how much, how many options you have. It's insane. So the first thing I'll do is actually do like a line. I saw a lined one in here that I was using horizontal line shader. Okay. And then I'm going to use this horizontal shader and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is on a new layer, but in between, because I want it to only affect the back layer, I'm going to just add that effect. And this is pressure sensitive. So the harder you press, the bolder it's going to be, and the less you press, it's going to be smaller. But you see it's everywhere. So what I'm going to do is go to the layer below it, go to my selection little magic wand here, make sure it's on automatic, and just select outside of the letters. The reason it looks weird is because it's selecting the back layer, which is not perfect letters. It's just that drop shadow. So that's selected. Go back to my layers panel. It might be hard to see on the screen, but there are these marching ants where it's not selected, which are those letters. So I'm going to go back to the part that I just covered in those lines and take 3 fingers, swipe down, and say cut. Now you can see that because I made that selection, I have these effects just to those letters. So I could keep them there, or I could actually drag them off a little bit and kind of have them be like an offset printing type of situation, which is really, really fun. So you can play with that, but let me show you what that looks like if you do it to the top part. It makes a lot more sense. So you might be asking yourself, Peggy, why didn't you just show us that in the beginning? And it's because I like to make everything harder. No, it's not true. Okay, so a new layer here, and then I'm going to select maybe I'll just try peach for now. Again, these colors totally going to change. Okay, so I'll go to Big Dots shader and we'll see what that looks like. Make this a little smaller. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to make these kind of vibrant dots. And again, the more pressure, the more bold it's going to be, the more, the larger it's going to be. So now I'm going to take and go to my layers panel, go to the layer underneath that, go to the selection tool. It's on automatic, select outside of the letter. So now you can see that everything, and I'm going to select inside of these because I don't want it to show up there either. So it's basically just selecting everything but that. Now I go back to the layer that I just applied that effect, take 3 fingers, drag down, and say cut. So now you can see that it is only on that one area. and then I can move that off if I want to. Okay, so then I'm going to do the same thing to try, and I'm going to do the same thing to like my banner. So I'm just going to speed this up so that you don't have to keep listening. I'm literally doing the same technique the whole way, and so I can show you the end result. And all right, you guys, so really the more that you experiment, the more you play with this, the more fun it can be. But as you can see, I have a Barbie vibe going on right now. But yeah, so that's kind of the gist. I just was so excited about these offset styles. I'll show you one more example that was really fun for me. I created these gals, and they've just got that halftone blush offset. So you know, you can really do a lot with the styling of it. And so it's just really simple, just something really fun. So I hope that that was helpful, fun, and be sure to watch some other tutorials. Be sure to subscribe, all the things that YouTubers say, and I'll see you guys next time.